Just slightly more than 5 months after, that day has come. I'm selling my CFmoto CLC 450. And trust me, it's not for the reason you might have thought. I'll share the exact reasons with you at the end of this video, but before letting it go, I want to share my final thoughts about this bike. Some points here will be completely new, and some will be updates or confirmations of what I mentioned before in my videos about positives and negatives of this bike that you can find in the description of this video. And following the tradition, I'll start with a negative point. High beam. It's just too high. Not that high obviously, but the problem is that the light is projected too high, to the point that when you turn on the high beam, it barely does anything for seeing the surface of the road further than with the regular light, which is the whole point of the high beam, right? Though this position is good at making car drivers blind through the side mirrors. Even the standard projection of the light is a bit weird, to the point that I had a couple of interactions with drivers in front of me who thought that I was using the high beam for no reason. Can you change the direction using the system? Well, I used the most scientific approach to this problem that I know, which is clicking on every line in the menu, and unfortunately never found anything that would allow me to play with the position of the light. But with that being said, when filming this video, I realized that the headlamp can actually be tilted, and most probably this negative point was just a small installation issue when the bike was assembled in a dealership or a factory. But either way, unscrewing this bolt and playing with the direction of the lamp will probably be an option to solve this negative point. If you watched the video about negatives, then you probably remember when I said that it's not the best motorcycle to choose in case of zombie apocalypse, because it takes whopping 10 seconds before the screen is on and the system does its internal checks. Well, since that video I became a bit more confident and decided to risk the well-being of this bike for you guys and see if you can actually turn the engine on without waiting for the screen to turn completely on. And you know what? It works. But I must warn you that I have no idea how it affects the bike in the long run. And same as with many things in life, it's not necessarily a good thing to do something just because you can. If continuing with the system, last month for almost a week, I got TCS Warning, turning on somewhere after 60 miles per hour, which stopped my bike from going faster than this speed. For those who don't know, TCS stands for Traction Control System. It's a safety feature that detects when the rear wheel is losing a grip and automatically reduces engine power or applies slight braking to regain traction, which is exactly what was happening to my bike for a week of riding it, until I finally found a reason, which was pretty basic to be honest. My rear tire went semi-flat, which is super impressive to be honest, because I drove like this on a highway for a week, so you can call it a luck or praise the motorcycle, but I'll thank both of them simply because I can now understand what was the reason and share it with you from my desk and not from the hospital bed. Another quick one to share with you, in case you already changed your oil or whatever at the dealership and got this maintenance warning popping up every time you turn the motorcycle, then here's a quick tutorial on how to remove it. In the menu, scroll to the service section, then press up and enter buttons together until you get a pop-up window that offers you to reset the maintenance system. Navigate to yes, and voila, you are now free from that annoying message. However, make sure you do this only after you actually serviced your bike. Now I will give you my opinion based on my observations during the 5 months of riding this bike on probably one of the most asked questions about this bike on my channel, which is the suspension. And again, I've seen people saying it's trash and their back hurts from riding it for too long, but if you ask me, I have no complaints. Yes, this is my first cruiser, but it's my 6th motorcycle, so I have a chance to compare. And before you think, this guy, he only posted drives on a highway or within the city with clean roads and no bumps, well, sorry to break it for skeptics out there, but I use this bike mainly to reach my house located outside of the city, because I had to feed my dog and my apartment within the city was under the renovation. And before hopping to the highway or from it, this was the type of roads where I drove this motorcycle. Muddy and bumpy at the same time, yet I never had a feeling that I need to hop off the bike because the suspension was trash. Though I must remind you that I train every day, and the way my muscles are built from all of the training I do is not necessarily what you can brag about. And if you're a fit person who mainly moves from couch to refrigerator and back, then trust me, no bike in the world will be able to offer you the suspension that you won't complain about. After more than 5 months of riding it, I think it would make sense if I mentioned the build quality of this bike. I drove with it under all kinds of conditions. Under direct sun, through heavy rain, extremely windy environments, which are not that rare in my country, bumpy surface. It even got covered with the snow after I left it for more than 3 days on the street. And so far, nothing is shaking or feels like it's about to fall off. Everything seems intact, functioning the way it was from the day one. And the only negative thing I can say is that the screws that are holding the plate number got covered with a bit of rust, which for me is not a big deal because most important parts of the motorcycle, like engine for example, is rust-free. And small screws like this, I mean, it takes nothing to change them if it really bothers you. The seat is also looking good. I mean, I drove this bike every single day, sometimes with a passenger, but mainly with a pretty heavy back, sitting or mumbling on the passenger seat. And none of this, including weather conditions, affected the way it looks, as you can see on the video. Next one, not sure if it's a negative or me not feeling the bike, but it's definitely not a positive. Because sometimes this bike just stops. Well, not just randomly, but mainly in a lower gear. For example, when starting to move with the green light, I sometimes even get a spike of anxiety like a newbie usually gets when they're trying to get used to their first bike. It does not happen that often, but it happens, which created a habit of pushing the throttle a tiny bit more than I would normally do on other motorcycles when starting to move from a complete stop. And before you think I'm a newbie, then I will repeat again. That's my 6th bike. I'm using motorcycles as an everyday transportation method and not just for weekend rides. Plus, people in the comments share similar experiences, so fuck off. However, with that being said, I want to say that this machine is reliable. I mean, I'm not sponsored by CFmoto. I'm not sponsored by anyone, not even by your views or 500 subscribers that I have. So whatever I say is not influenced by anyone or anything other than my true experience with this motorcycle. And if you didn't notice, I bought this bike right before the winter and drove it through the winter, which is a bit weird type of winter in my country, because sometimes it feels like summer, sometimes it rains non-stop, not sometimes, but all the time it's windy, super unstable. But what is more important to me is that the bike was stable enough to get me through all of this without a need to call someone for help on the side of the highway because my bike decided to give up for some reason. And if this is not how you define a reliable motorcycle, then I don't know what to say to you. Especially on rainy days. I mean, after falling with my second bike, I had that phobia following me even whenever there was a light rain. But with this bike, I confidently managed to ride both within the city and on highways during heavy rain without feeling that I may fall any moment. Oh, by the way, speaking of the city, I will say it again, but if you plan to get this bike for lane filtering and save some time from all the traffic, then go for it. Because I'll just confirm what I said in one of my videos. This bike looks bulky, but it's also compact enough to save you some time in heavy traffic. Although I started filming a series about this bike from the negatives I have to say about it, to be honest, I'm happy with this motorcycle. This is my first cruiser type of bike, and I believe for someone like me who drove motorcycles that are slower or way faster than this and completely different design and type-wise, this was a great choice that I'm not regretting at all. Probably now you ask yourself that if I'm happy about this bike, then why the hell would I sell it just after 5 months of riding it? Well, the answer is not that simple, and it is not related to the bike itself. The short answer is my wish. The long answer is that a long time ago, when I got tired of being bullied at school, university, and even streets, I signed up for MMA classes. which over time sucked me to the point that I started to participate in local amateur competitions and winning title by title, then moving to international amateur competitions and winning there as well, and later moved to a professional arena, winning few fights in a very first round, and even becoming the first in my country who participated and won in Bellator promotion, which was competing with UFC at that time. Those were pretty crazy times, but what was even crazier was that I did all of this while working in major events industry, which on its own is a pretty time-consuming job and is way different from a standard 9 to 5. I had to do this simply because I couldn't afford to give 100% to the sports, because I had to support my family, learn and do something that will support me in case if I get an injury that will make it impossible for me to compete, which is not that rare in professional sports and happened to me a lot. And although I lost my 2 fights 5 years ago by breaking my hand and then breaking a rib, now when I'm 32, I decided it's now or never. It's either going all in today or entering what many calls would've, should've, could've stage that usually comes after 40 or 50 when people think about all the stuff they could have achieved if they would have started back then. And exactly for that reason, I'm selling my bike. To be able to afford a flight either to Thailand or United States and get my first ever proper training camp outside of my country, because I never had one before. And if training while being tired in the evenings after my job or early in the morning before meetings allowed me to get the achievements I've got throughout these years, well, then imagine what I can do with full dedication and good training camp. That's what I want to do. I want to stop imagining it and actually try it. I'm not sure if I'll keep posting about this entire journey on this channel or create a new one and just keep this one for motorcycle footage that I have extra on my computer that I never posted. But whatever it is, if you decide to stick around, maybe you'll be able to see part of that journey and get something more than what you clicked for, like I think you got in this video. Thank you and see you somewhere else.